Hello, welcome back to the show. I'm your host Kyle, and the latest movie I'm going to be talking about is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, the latest in the Planet of the Apes franchise, which has now gone on for quite a few years. Just diving right into it. For millennia, humans were the dominant force on planet Earth, reaching new heights in technological advancement, distancing them from their prehistoric ancestors. But their hubris led to the unintended spreading of a mind altering virus, which, while increasing the intelligence of apes, decreased that of mankind. Now, the years following this epidemic saw the rise of a leader of apes named Caesar, who sought peace between the species. Now, many generations later, Caesar has passed away, but his legacy lives on amongst some apes. A new world is born with different ape tribes living in the ruins of the old world, and an ape named Noah, played by Owen Teague, is the brave son of the leader of the Eagle Clan. Now, the Eagle Clan live peacefully and they use their flying companions for hunting and gathering. But this is until one day when a chance run in with a human woman named May, played by Freya Allen, begins a series of events which puts Noah and his tribe in peril. Humans have become feral over the years, but there's something about May which is different. Now, a raiding party under the command of Proxima Caesar, played by Kevin Durand, soon enslaves Eagle Clan. Now, Proxima has warped the lessons of his namesake, the original Caesar, and he uses that power to control other apes. Now, seeking to increase his tyranny, Proxima covets human knowledge and human weaponry of the old world. Joining forces with May and another ape named Raka, played by Peter Macon, Noah begins a journey to rescue his clan, and during which he'll learn the true history of this fallen world. But can mankind and ape kind truly live in peace? Now, like I said, beginning in 1968, the Planet of the Apes film franchise has been long lasting and has seen many iterations, from the film, which is probably Charlton Heston's most iconic role, to Tim Burton's misguided remake. It's really has been a staple of film history. And between 2011 and 2017, there was a prequel trilogy which told the story through the eyes of an ape named Caesar, who in those films was played by Andy Serkis. And it showed the downfall of the human world and the rise of the Planet of the Apes. There was Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and I believe War for the Planet of the Apes. And with this new fourth film, new director to the series, Wes Ball, further bridges the gap in time between the reign of Caesar in that original trilogy and the world that we see in the original 1968 classic. And this is something that I really appreciated about the Caesar trilogy, I guess you'd call it. It's open world building and the portrayal of a dystopian future in the making. There were always human characters in those movies, and they were always fighting the oncoming tide of extinction. But we knew that they inevitably would fail. And Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes begins far further into that dark fate, yet it doesn't fully expand on it as well as its predecessors. This movie is set something like 200, 300 years after the previous one, and I think there was a lot of potential for a story set this far into basically the dystopian future, at least dystopian for mankind. But yeah, I just felt that this movie it didn't really take full advantage of it like it could have. I think that things start out fine with the ape clans of the new world clashing over their ideals, and the film it shows how Caesar's once peaceful teachings have been bastardized over generations. I keep referring to Caesar because even though that character, who was more or less the protagonist of the previous trilogy, he's not in this movie at all, but his legacy can be felt throughout the entire film. And it really is about how his teachings and his lessons have been bastardized over the years. And in like the building of empires, even the most noble causes can be twisted to serve nefarious purposes. Now, unfortunately, the film's second half feels like it is retreading old ground. For one, the whole can man and ape coexist question, it's already been asked in the previous films, and we already know the depressing answer. So it feels, I mean, that's pretty much what Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was about. It was about apes and mankind trying to work together, but certain forces in both camps pretty much would inevitably screw things up. Like that was kind of the point of that movie. And so, yeah, trying to retread it once again in this film, it just really feels like it just feels like it's the same, trying to do the same story again when really that it's already been beaten into the ground. And I think that the issue really stems from what I found to be a major problem in the those prequel films as well, which was that the ape characters are simply more interesting than the humans. Noah's journey here, I think it's an intriguing one where he goes through personal growth and he has like where his simple view of the world is challenged. Through the ape that he meets named Raka, he learns of Caesar's true teachings, but through Proximus, he sees the corruption of those words and the power that they lead to. As well, through the character of May, he learns that, well, yeah, things weren't always as they seem now, where apes are the dominant force of the planet. There was a time where mankind was calling the shots. But the problem is, by comparison, the character of May is a fairly boring character who it's difficult to ever truly empathize with. Her story is largely, I feel it's kind of elusive, and there's a lot of secrecy to her character, even though there really probably shouldn't be, because it's fairly predictable. And when things are revealed, they're mostly just delivered through dialogue. Uh, we don't see where May comes from. We're just told through dialogue that this is where she comes from. And the other problem that I found specifically with her character was that her dialogue feels way too modern. Um, it doesn't basically it doesn't feel at all like it's in representing the near 300-year leap into the future that this is supposed to be set in, let alone like 300 years into a 300 years into some kind of a dystopian world. Yeah, I just the way that she talks just feels very 2024. But where the film, I think, succeeds past that little hiccup is that the film it continues to bring us just brilliant advancements in visual effects, and it's interesting because as the apes themselves have evolved throughout the four films of this kind of prequel series, we're seeing the apes kind of go from apes as we know them in the real world to being much more intelligent, much more creative, basically like prehistoric man. But while that's happening in the stories themselves, we're actually seeing the technology used to bring them to the big screen advance and evolve in the same way. The 2011 film Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I mean, it featured really impressive visual effects for the time, but this film's altogether something different. I mean, they did look really good for the time, but even when I first saw the movie, I was thinking, yeah, when you first start watching it, Caesar and some of the other apes did really look pretty fake. They kind of their fur didn't quite look real. They just didn't look quite solid. I guess it was more a testament to just how good the movie was, how good Andy Serkis's motion capture performance was. That despite how hokey some of the effects looked, they you eventually just let it sweep over you, and you were okay with it. Like I remember thinking that all the way back in 2011, that even though the CGI on this character is kind of fake looking at a glance, you care so much about the story that you can't that by not very long into it, it doesn't matter how kind of fake it looks because you've accepted it regardless. But in this film, completely CGI characters look really solid, and their fur here looks, I've said, like believably fluffy. Like it feels really, yeah, they just look quite real. And there's specifically kind of an action set piece towards the end of the film where there's lights going on. The characters are in water, they're soaking wet, the lights are flashing and reflecting on the characters, and yeah, it just looks really impressive. It looks, yeah, it looks quite amazing. Now, the advancement in motion capture, I think, also allows for incredibly expressive performances, which help us draw. It draws us into these computer-generated characters even more. The character Raka, played by Megan, uh, yeah, I think that's really the real standout, and he's kind of a joy to watch whenever he's on screen. Something about I think the orangutan that he's playing is he's just the face is allowed to be just so expressive and deliver so much emotion that yeah, it really stands out, especially compared to Noah, the chimpanzee, I guess. And while Durand, his portrayal of Proximus, it really is kind of an extremely terrifying and charismatic leader of apes. Like those elements of the film, I really liked, and yeah, it's really the movie. It's full of action and great ideas. Uh, so it is a hugely entertaining film, but it also features some of the most impressive visual effects I've ever seen in a movie this side of Avatar. And it I don't think it really quite sticks the landing as far as the story is concerned. Being it really does feel specifically towards the end, which obviously I can't go into, but I think it really does seem more interested in setting up sequels than I think it should be. Like I feel that they should have focused way more on just the building the world like the previous films have, rather than the idea of setting up sequel hooks, which yeah seems to be what they're going for here. But still, I find that Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is another strong installment in this film franchise. So I'm going to give this 3 out of 5. Definitely entertaining. Visual effects amazing. There's some cool ideas. Doesn't quite stick the landing, unfortunately. So it doesn't. I don't feel it has quite the same. Uh, doesn't quite hit the same high marks as Dawn of the Planet of the Apes or War for the Planet of the Apes, but I still enjoyed it, and yeah, I recommend checking it out, especially if you're a fan of the films, especially a fan of these prequel movies, because yeah, I think you'll enjoy this one as well.